Hello, everybody. I know I haven't gone live in a really long time. I'm not even certain if all of my sound is working and all of that. So please do let me know if it is not working. Just give me a little shout. But today I am going to be answering all of the comments that I feel I have not answered over the last little while. As you've noticed, I really haven't been making a lot of long form videos because obviously I am moving, so I don't have all of my stuff together anymore. My whole entire cookie cutter wall is taken down. I'm emptying out all my baking stuff. I did a lot of my my sprinkles and things like that. So today I am going to be answering all of those comments on my various videos. So I'll try to give you a little bit of a description of what video I'm actually talking about. Let me just see this. Sorry. Okay. Let's go through and check out the comments. Somebody asked me on my how to make easy classic sugar cookie decorating tutorial, how long did I bake them for? I often get questions on this specific tutorial. So how long I bake my sugar cookie dough for, it's a standard sugar cookie dough. I set the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and I bake it for approximately 11 to 13 minutes. But the reason that I don't necessarily write that down explicitly is because everybody's oven is so different. So really what I'm looking for when I'm baking sugar cookies is I'm looking to see that it gets just a little bit of a brown edge, and that's basically it. I'm not looking for a super pale color, because if it's too pale, it's not going to be baked all the way through. But I am looking for just a little bit of a brown edge. I know that some people like their sugar cookies kind of pure, like that whitish yellowish color, but I do like to have a little bit of a brown edge. That way I know it's cooked through and through and that it's going to be able to withstand all the decor that I usually put on it. Hello, Magdalena. So nice to see you. Wow, from Honduras. That's amazing. All right, let's go to the next one. This is from my video all about Italian meringue buttercream. I called it my stable ultimate go-to buttercream because that is the truth. If you are looking for a really good buttercream that's good for wedding cakes, that's good for any cakes, Italian meringue buttercream is the way to go. I find it's more stable than Swiss meringue buttercream. But again, you can stabilize your Swiss meringue buttercream a little bit more. Just add in a little bit more butter. But the question was, how does it contrast with Swiss meringue buttercream? Basically, both buttercreams use an egg white base. It's egg whites, granulated sugar, and then butter. The only difference is the way that it comes together. So for Swiss meringue buttercream, you're putting your egg whites and your sugar over a pot of boiling water, or a double boiling system, and then you're whipping those egg whites and getting that sugar to really be combined all together. And then you go ahead and you add that whipped mixture. It is a meringue, and you're putting it back into your stand mixer, whipping it up, and then adding your butter in. Whereas with the Italian meringue buttercream, you're actually putting the granulated sugar and the water on the stove first. You have your egg whites sitting in your stand mixer and you get that whipping, and then you're bringing that sugar and water to kind of, I can't remember if it's a soft crack. I think it's soft crack, but it's 239 degrees Fahrenheit. You start whipping your egg whites, and then 244 degrees Fahrenheit is where you ultimately want to get it. And then you slowly pour it into your whipped egg whites. And then after that, after it makes this really beautiful meringue, then you add in your butter. And I just find that they taste very similar. Italian meringue buttercream to me sometimes tastes a little bit more buttery, but again, that's where you're getting your hold from. So that is why I like it, and that is how it kind of contrasts. It's pretty similar. Hello, Sarama. Hello, Miley. Nice to see you guys. I feel like I'm always seeing these people comment on my videos, and I'm finally able to connect with you guys again. My goal, and I know I've been setting a lot of goals lately, and I have not been following through as well as I have in past, but I really do want to be uploading a lot more frequently in the summer. I'm not going to have air conditioning in my new house. We bought some air conditioning units, and it has been very, very hot in Vancouver the last few summers. So I'm a little bit worried, but it'll also be a good experiment to see how my buttercreams and all those things really hold up in very hot weather. Like Magdalena said, my country, our weather is very hot and it melts. I understand. And you know what? Buttercream isn't meant to withstand like severely high temperatures, but if you're gonna give it a go, I would give it a go with Italian meringue buttercream and then maybe mixing some shortening in there as well, just to give it a little bit more stabilization. I know it doesn't taste as good, but all right, next question. This is a classic question. This customer was upset because their cake was there was too much cake. This is my viral video. I think it has like 20 million hits on it. And again, this is a comment that I get all the time. Was she eating the entire 6-inch cake herself? And it's so funny that everyone always misses the pinned comment, because really, who is reading a pinned comment, all of the time? I think most people are just scrolling through shorts, but I will explain that the person that was upset about the 6-inch cake was not upset that it was too much cake or that she was consuming too much. It was literally because it was so tall, and she said that she was a small person, so she wanted it to be shorter to match with her height or something like that. It was from a long time ago, but that was the feeling that I got from that. Finally caught my first live, super excited, great talent, love your videos and genuine content. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so glad that you're catching me on a live. I'm sorry it's not a live where I'm actually making something, but I am answering these questions. Okay, what's the recipe for the cake? The amount of times that I get a question about the recipe for a cake is astronomical, and I've explained this to some of you that have been here for a long time. I do use tried and true recipes, but many of them I've just found online. So I have begun linking anything that I use online, especially, if it's public knowledge already for everybody. The only thing that I do not link is the macaron recipe, because that one is a paid recipe and I can't just be giving that out, or else she can't make money from selling her macaron recipe. All right, in one of my videos where I said I'm collecting bakers, because I have a lot of baking friends. I have a lot of ties to the baking community, but my close friends are bakers. 2 of them are. And somebody said, okay, but where do you get those baking friends? Seriously, I know no one who likes baking as much as I do, and I just bore everyone with my explaining the difference between all the buttercreams. Please share some friends. You know what? Getting into into baking groups will actually really help you connect with other bakers. And I don't know about your community, but I know that some communities are like ultra friendly, and they'll set up like baking meetups, and they'll have like picnics or dinners where you can like meet up with other people that have similar interests, in this case, baking. But for me, honestly, the reason that I met so many is because of one bakery that I worked at. And then I just kept meeting different people and then making friends with those people. And then those people would go on and move on to different baking jobs and then meet more baking friends. So that is how I've met a lot of my baking community. I apologize if you can hear my children in the background. It is well past their bedtime, but it's nearing summer. They only have 2 weeks of school left, so they're very rambunctious. And I think they're singing right now. Monica, nice to see you from Graham, Washington. Amazing. Could I link the creator of the macaron recipe you use? Yeah, the person that I got the macaron recipe from is somebody that I took an in-person class with. Her company was Les Petits Macarons, and I don't know if she still does it. I hope she does, but definitely go and look that website up. It's in Vancouver. I don't know if you have to go to the class in person or if you can purchase it online or if she's made that available. I'm not sure. Okay, can you drop the recipe for the tart? This one is a question that came from one of my recent shorts where I talk about going to pick up the ingredients for this really delicious lemon meringue tart, and then someone almost ran me over because they were texting, because people are irresponsible about that. Don't text and drive. So I will ask my friend if I can give the recipe out for that tart shell. So I tend to combine different recipes all together. So I use a tried and true for the lemon curd inside of the lemon meringue tart. And then I use my friend's recipe that she got. I think she got it from her Red Seal Culinary Arts degree when she did that. So I'll see if I can publish that one because it's so good. It's basically a sablé dough. And someone asked me the other day, what's the difference between pie dough and a sablé dough? And so basically sablé is traditionally used for tarts. You might have also eaten a sablé cookie. Fun fact, in Santa Baby, when she sings that song, she says, slip a sable under the tree for me. And it took me years to figure out. She's saying, slip a sablé under the tree for me. Because that's what the cookie's called. It's a French word. So that was a tangent. But basically, sablé dough crumbles really, really nicely. So you don't get that same chew as a pie crust. Pie crust is very flaky, but it does have somewhat of a chew to it. And I find that the contents stay in a sablé tart shell much better because the bite is just a lot easier on the tooth and everything just seems to stay together better. Let's answer some questions that are coming through in the chat. Rachel asks, do your children love to bake like you? So it's funny because my daughter, when I first started out on YouTube, I thought that I would make a lot of content with her just so that we would have the memories. Just so we would have the memories. And I did make a lot of Aria Temps videos with her, but she really did not like doing the voiceovers because when she was 3, obviously, who would want to do that? So I stopped making that content with her and I was like, you're a child. You can go play, go have fun, do what you want if this is not what you want to do. And now years later, she's like, Mom, why did you let me stop making content on YouTube? And why don't you bake with me more? So she's actually getting more interested in it now, but I think it's actually because she likes the media side of the idea of creating videos. So it's hard for me to decide if she really likes the baking aspect or if she likes more the media and performative aspect. But I've gone a little bit back and forth with her creating videos. I feel like the landscape of YouTube has really changed. And it's just becoming a place that I feel is not necessarily good for children to necessarily be on at such a young age in such a continual manner. So that is where we're at with her baking. And then with my son, he is very into baking. He really, really loves the idea of creation. We put him into things like Taekwondo, and we asked him if he wants to play soccer or do different sports. And just know, he wants to do things like draw and cook and bake. And a funny story, we signed him up for some cooking classes this summer. And then in the car, I asked my daughter as well, hey, do you want to do these cooking classes too? And then he turned to his sister and he said, hey, get your own cooking class. So he obviously feels like cooking and baking is his thing. Okay. Let's see. Do you still have your bakery? I forgot the girls who made your videos decorated cakes. She did a beautiful job. I never had my own bakery storefront, but I did run my home baking business. Sorry, 1 second. I don't know what's happening up there. So I never had my own bakery storefront, but I did run a home baking business, and for my home baking business, I just stopped that right around kind of 2020 is when I stopped, because obviously I couldn't do it anymore under those circumstances. But my other friend who made the cakes, she still has her bakery storefront, if that's what you were asking about. So yes, she is still running her bakery storefront, and still doing exactly what she was doing a few years ago. Okay, let's keep going here. Is she talking about the fur coat? Interesting, because I feel like I've heard a couple different things about that. I'm gonna have to look that up later. Okay, anyway, can you share your macaron recipe? No, I've already talked about that. What consistency icing do you use for your border on sugar cookies? So this comes from the video where it's the process of making 135 wedding favor sugar cookies at home. Every time I do a circle that is like if I want like a puffy kind of look, I always use the same consistency. So I do pipe and flood consistency for the outside of the circle as well. Now in this particular video, I did use another type of consistency for this border that kind of like puffs up a little bit. And so for that one, I use a little bit thicker than pipe and flood consistency. Anytime you're doing something like a beaded border, but you don't want it like peaked up, so you don't want to use like piping icing for that, because then it's going to be too peaked, but you want to use like a little bit of a softer icing. So it's kind of in between a pipe and flood and a complete pipe. All right. What can I do if I can't find meringue powder? Is there any substitute? And again, that was on the process of making 135 wedding favor sugar cookies at home. And I know that you can use egg whites. But if you're going to use egg whites, I really wouldn't use fresh egg whites in place of meringue powder. And the only reason that is because for food safety, it just makes everything a little bit trickier. So instead, I would go with pasteurized egg whites if you can, because there's no heating process when it comes to making royal icing. So this was a question from how to make a no-fail surprise pull-up cake. So it was the one where I did like a little baby reveal. She like got to pull up this piece, and out of the cake came the picture of the sonogram. So I did just place the fondant on, because if I were to really stick it down, it just makes it harder for them to pull it up. But if I know that the cake is going to be shifting around and moving all the time, then I would just put a little bit of buttercream under there. Okay, this is a very long comment. I don't know if it needs a response or if it's just a comment, but we will see. This is on my short, why would anybody want a fake cake? Why didn't you just make your friends a real one? And the person's response to that: for all those complaining about wedding venues charging to cut the cake, they have to hire a crew of catering services. No one is going to work for free, including bartenders that they hire for weddings. The cake also has to be cut precisely to get the amount of servings for all the guests that will attend. If the cake were cut larger than it should, then they would run out of servings, and then that would make the wedding venue and planner look bad. So The reason that people charge for that is, yes, what they said. Anytime the venue has to do something that is outside of the scope of whatever it is included is going to be extra. Let's see. You get a lot of comments that are just comments. So I'm trying to look for the questions. Wow, there's a lot of comments, just comments on here. A lot of people are asking me in the video where it says making 500 cupcakes in 4 hours, a typical opening shift at a bakery. They keep asking where the baker got her cases from. I don't know, because the cases were bought, I think, well over 13 years ago. It's an interesting story of this bakery that I was closely affiliated with, because basically the person that originally purchased it, so my original boss, had just purchased this kind of bakery similar to something like a store, like cupcakes. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's basically just like a store that only sold cupcakes. And I think it's still around. And they used a particular mix, and they all made the same things. And it was a chain, it was a franchise. And so she purchased one of those originally. Then something went down with this company, and the owner actually ended up running off with all of the money and was like going bankrupt. Something was really, really sketchy. My boss was just left kind of like with this franchise that no longer had a working name above it, because obviously the company went under. So she kind of had to make a decision. She kind of had to decide, am I going to continue in this bakery world, or am I going to do something completely different? Because she didn't buy the bakery because she was so into baking. She just bought something because she wanted to always own her own business. And so she didn't know what to do, because before they would just bring the product in and she would just sell it, and that was it. So she was really amazing. The fact that she went out, she hired people, she thought on the fly, and she was able to create a really lucrative business. It was doing pretty well when she sold it to another person, and then that person ended up really making the business what it is today, and is quite successful. But the reason that a lot of these things that you're seeing in the video aren't able to be purchased anymore is because they actually came from that original company that went defunct. So that is the story. Okay, this one comes from disappointed with my professional wedding cake. I ordered for my wedding, so I remade it. This is when I remade my wedding cake, and a sad fact is I had that remake of my wedding cake sitting up there on my shelf for the longest time, but now that I'm moving, I just threw it out the other day because I simply cannot take anything extra into my new home. All right, this is the comment. Gorgeous. What kind of glue do you use for flowers? I made my daughter's wedding cake, and it was my very first time using it and first time making flowers. Let's just say I bought some pre-made just in case, and frosting covers oopsies. So the best thing to do, especially when you're making a wedding cake where things can be very, very open to critique, is I mix a little bit of Tylose powder with water. And a little bit of Tylose goes a long way. You just need a little bit of warmish water to really dissolve the Tylose powder. Leave it for a little bit. It won't look very dissolved when you first do it. You just kind of leave it sitting there. And then it's perfect. It's like this kind of gluey texture. It almost resembles like corn syrup, but it's less soupy than that. And it just does the job beautifully. Now, if you're finding that it's too thin and it's like running off of things, thicken it up a little bit, add a little bit more Tylose powder, and then you'll have a really nice pipeable glue. And this really helps solidify those petals together if you're making flowers. And one of the things that you really need to be careful with when you are using any edible glue or icing, if it's not super thick, you want to be very sparing with how much you're putting on there. And I will say that the Tylose powder mixed with water does not do well with very, very dry petals. I think it needs to be a little bit soft to kind of come together. All right. This was a comment on what a busy home baker's schedule is really like. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. This sounds and looks like so much fun. Even with all of the chaos, it sounds so rewarding to make such beautiful creations, get better and better each time. It's so satisfying to master a new technique and bake something with complete confidence. I could not agree more. I'm going to heart that comment. It is chaotic. Running your own bakery is chaotic and crazy, especially if you're doing it from home because you have to live life and then you're also doing that. So, but in order to be able to pull things off easily and with confidence is such a great reward, even if you're just using the skill for yourself. Like the other day, my friend and I were talking. She really does not like baking or cooking, and she feels a little bit nervous around the oven. So she was sitting here, and I was just kind of making cupcakes for this parent tea appreciation. And, you know, we were talking, and then like 45 minutes later, the cupcakes are done, and I'm icing them. And she's like, "That's amazing that you just made the cupcakes." And she's like, "I would be still thinking about every single step and wouldn't have been able to keep talking to you." So yeah, I think being able to master a skill is a great feeling. Going back to these comments. Maybe I got confused. I thought you had a bakery because I used to follow Cake Legend. I do not see those videos anymore. Okay, so this is what the probably where the confusion lies. I featured a bakery on my channel quite frequently, and so that was never my bakery. It was just a friend's bakery. And then my friend Cake Legend also filmed videos at that same bakery, but then there was more stipulations put in place, so then that's why she stopped filming there, and obviously I stopped filming there as well. So that is probably where the confusion is. But that bakery is still thriving and still doing its thing. Somebody asked me on a video where I talk about, did the baking community fix this, about how people are calling them macarons now and not macaroons, which I am so happy about because that was really causing me a lot of confusion. Someone said, "Yours look fabulous. How do you store them so they stay yummy? Mine dried out in a covered sealed container in a fridge." So I've seen a lot of video content and recipes saying that you should store your macarons in the fridge to age them or mature them, they say. Shells do need time to mature if you really want that flavor to be soaked in there. Personally, my family really likes eating them fresh, but obviously we can't eat 80 macarons at once. So I put them in the freezer. The freezer helps maintain that flavor profile a lot better than in the fridge. I just find it's a lot less compromising in flavor, and I don't even experience freezer burn or anything from macarons being in the fridge. Let's see. This one is on the video. This small bakery makes 3,400 of these cupcakes in a weekend. And someone said, "Can we have any of the cupcake recipes?" And unfortunately, no, I cannot give away this other bakery's cupcake recipe. Let's see. This is a question on watch me make 100+ cupcakes and a cake for my sister-in-law's wedding. That was last year already, which is just crazy. What size bowls are those at the beginning? I've been looking for new ones, but don't know what size to get. If space is not an issue in your home, always go for a really, really large mixing bowl, because if you're ever baking in bulk, it is a lifesaver. I remember before I had large mixing bowls, I was doing I think I was making 200 cupcakes or something for my dad's big 60th birthday. And I ended up having to use pots because I didn't have the space. So definitely a large mixing bowl, and get nesting bowls so you just have all the little bowls fitting in there. That way you're never going to go wrong with the size. Let's see. This is a question on how to make seashell macarons, how to pipe macarons into shapes. What flavors did you use to make the seashells? So whenever I'm making macarons, I actually never flavor the shells. On very, very rare occasions, I might put something like Earl Grey tea in there, or I might put a little bit of cocoa powder in there, or espresso. But in general, especially when I'm making a big batch and I'm making different things and different types of flavors, I generally just stick with a plain macaron shell. That way I can flavor a lot of different ones in the same batch. Let's keep going. All about faux Swiss meringue buttercream. My new go-to buttercream. This was when I made this buttercream. It is fabulous at how smooth it is. So it said, can it be made chocolate? If so, when and how much cocoa do I add or melt chocolate? So if you ever want to add chocolate to something meringue based, or even if it's like an American buttercream, I generally like to stick with cocoa powder. That way it doesn't mess with the integrity of the buttercream. I find, although tastier sometimes, you can add melted chocolate to certain buttercreams, but it does make the texture different. Sometimes it makes it too hard, or sometimes it can cause it to just be really, really loose. So cocoa powder is the way to go. Oh, I know. I need to bring back the cake decorating competitions. That is for sure. You know what? It's funny. After I went on cross country cake off, it's not like I had a bad experience on that show whatsoever. Like, it was really cool being on set, and I was like super proud of like the things that I did on the show. But I have been so turned off of like participating in those types of things. I think it was just because of the sheer amount of stress that came with it, but not on the show. It's like all the pre-planning and preparing that has to go into it that just made me like not even think of that type of video concept for the longest time. But maybe once I'm a little bit more settled, we will bring those cake competitions back. What can I do to stabilize my cream cheese frosting? As I said, in my country, it's hot. Cream cheese, that is one of the things that goes soft so easily. Even here, even though it really doesn't get too hot here except for like 3 months of the year. And even then we have issues too when it comes to softening of cream cheese. The most you can do is sometimes I find adding a whipped cream stabilizer can help. And also adding a little bit more butter content in there. It does change the taste a little bit, so you kind of got to mess around with it. Unfortunately, what I do is, or what I used to do with clients, is I would really steer them away from like, icing a whole cake in cream cheese frosting. Instead, I would say, would you like it as the filling instead? So I would ice it in like a standard buttercream, Italian or American, and then I'd put that cream cheese filling on the inside. Let's see. There are a lot of nice comments on here that I'm just scrolling through. But oh my goodness, there's been so many like bots on the comments lately too. People telling me all about who taught them cooking. Oh, so this is a comment on who taught you how to do that, and it was all about who taught you how to bake or who taught you how to cook. And somebody said to me, how did you build your clientele? And this is a big, big question. So, how I built my clientele is really how I believe most people build their clientele for any business. So it's going to start out with a few people giving you a chance. That's initially how it starts out. And then you really, really have to utilize word of mouth with that. And also social media. Social media right now is the key to everything. And this isn't even just from a business perspective. This is from a consumer perspective. Anytime I want to try out something new, it actually in the last, I would say 10 months has come from a social media recommendation. Reels do wonders because if you can make reels about your product and you're really, really clear about the location of where you are and where somebody can access this, and you make it easy for people to access what it is that they're looking for from you, you're going to be able to build your clientele fairly easily, I must say. Yes, that is my initial tip. And after that, it really is about you have to make sure that you are giving quality things. And in the beginning, you got to start those prices a little bit lower. I know that I always talk about fair pricing, and that is a part of fair pricing. So understanding that you're just starting. So if you are just kind of making a little bit over your ingredients cost, that is okay in the beginning because that is what's going to get that ball rolling. And then you can increase as your reputation grows and as your product gets better too. I think we all want to believe that when we start out, our product is amazing and it's 100% correct. It never is. No matter how talented you are, it never is perfect in the beginning, and it's okay for us to give leeway room for that to grow and then for us to then establish what our worth is. You speak about how your mom didn't want you to bake when you were younger. How does she feel about it now? And how does she feel about the shorts where you speak about your strict upbringing? I think that familial relationships are very interesting. We all have a different perspective of what happened when, way back when. From a kid's perspective, things are very different. And I think that my mom knows that I'm speaking from my perspective of when I was in that place. And so I think she just accepts, yep, that is what happened. And that is part of Ashley's story. So I do get asked that a lot, but I think that there's nothing untruthful about what I've said. And I think that my mom still sticks by, yes, education was important. Yes, I did not allow her to bake. And so whenever I try to tell stories like that, I'm really just telling the story as exactly as it was. And so she loves my baking now. I think that for her, she does talk about with friends a lot that I run this YouTube channel and that I do all this baking all the time. And my mom watches my kids a lot for me. And so in exchange, I often give her a lot of my baked goods. And that's kind of how our relationship is when it comes to the whole baking thing. But I have not baked in her household ever. I don't think in my married adult life, I don't think I've ever done that. So she very much appreciates that the baking is in my house on my own time. All right. Yes, the bots are ridiculous. Just stumbled on your video now and I just subscribed. I want to know if you do other kinds of cakes or do you do cupcakes only? So it's funny because I feel like I've been doing cupcakes a lot lately. It's because my content has been very, this is going to sound weird, but very survival based lately because I've had so many changes this past year and I've been very, very busy. I've been making content really based on my life. Like before, I would try to come up with more creative things to do, or I'd do a lot more passion projects. And this school year, I just have not had the time to do a lot of passion projects because people keep asking me for different things. And so I've just been fitting in what I normally make in my daily life. So I know it appears that I make a lot of cupcakes, but I do other kinds of cakes, and I really am trying to get more into pastry work because my friend is a pastry chef too. She's actually able to teach me things like she makes croissants all the time. That's something I really, really want to learn and get into. But I love making macarons, tons of different types of cookies, and smaller plated pastries as well. Your parents seem to have done a wonderful job. I think that they really did teach me the value of hard work and sticking to things. And you can really apply that to so many things in life. So I'm very, very grateful that they gave me those tools. That's for sure. All right. A couple more comments and then I will be done for the night. Let's see here. Oh, so this was from a question from a live that I did, which was a while ago. Painting a chocolate shoe with Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop. So I believe that I made this for Mother's Day. And it says, how come the paint is sticking to the chocolate? I'm trying to paint white chocolate molds of dogs with edible gel food coloring and it isn't working. It's as if the chocolate is too greasy and is rejecting the paint, and the paint isn't drying at all. Do you have any tips, or do you know what I've done wrong? Your shoe looks amazing. So I was just talking about this the other day, how I had trouble dyeing my whipped chocolate ganache because I knew I wasn't using the right colorant, but I was hoping it would work. Luckily, I still have a lot of ganache drip, so it's not a full waste. But basically, you're using the wrong paint. So you can't use something that's water-based on chocolate. However, you can make it work if, and I believe I did do this in this video, you can make it work if you take your, like a paper towel or something to kind of rough up the edge of the chocolate. Because what you want is you want to kind of break the skin of the chocolate that's nice and shiny, and you're exposing kind of like a rougher patch underneath, and then you're able to do it. So it can be done even when you don't have the correct colorant that you need. Let's see. Somebody said on the video where I said I was in tears after this order, and it was me talking about how I messed up a bunch of cookies or something. And someone said, beautiful cupcakes, but those pearls are a choking hazard, and I would never use those. The edible pearls that I use, although they are a sprinkle, they actually dissolve really, really easily because, of course, you don't want people choking on your sprinkles. Let's see. Let's see if I can find one more question. So on how to make easy classic sugar cookies for decorating, I get a lot of comments on this one. Could I use half butter and half Crisco, or would the dough spread? I generally suggest with things like this that you don't go for substitutions. I would use all butter because it's gonna have that hold. And also anything with recipes, with baking, you have to be exact and really stick to things. Even when people say that there's substitutions for things, certain things will work and certain things won't. I would very rarely say that subbing Crisco for butter works in a lot of things that I do. All right. Do you have a video for how you started and things to take into consideration when one wants to begin a cupcake shop? Challenges faced. I would really love to know almost everything about it. I definitely have lots of videos on how I started and tips on how to do that. If you're wanting to work from home, I have a lot of things about that. When it comes to actually running a bakery storefront, that is definitely something that is not particularly in my wheelhouse. It takes a lot of research because I've watched people go through the process of doing it. And there's a lot of bylaws and things that you have to follow in your own particular region. And so getting through those hoops, I think, is probably one of the toughest things because you have to make sure that your bakery is fully regulated. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me for the past 46 minutes. Amazing. I am so sorry that I have not had a long form version of content on my channel in like 2 weeks, which is unheard of for me, but I am packing. I will show you what my cookie cutter wall now looks like. Let's take a little adventure into my second kitchen, and here it is. It's empty. It's so empty in here. It's a lot of hooks, like a lot of hooks. And unfortunately in my new place, I just don't have a spot to put this, so I'm just gonna pack it away until I have another home that can fit that. And then I've also gotten rid of a lot of my sprinkles, cleaned those out, just have a few left. So that is the state of my kitchen. We are moving officially in like 2 weeks or so. So it's going to be pretty empty in there very soon. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. See you later.